Guys, are you tired of saying the same old phrase, I think? I think this, I think that, I think I need to lose weight, I think I need to improve my English, I think she should this, I think she should that. Oh my goodness, I think is repeated so much and it gets quite boring for the listener and for you if you don't use other phrases, if you don't vary your English a little bit more. There are so many other fantastic phrases in English that you can use instead of I think. English is wonderfully diverse and we have many different ways that we want to express our thoughts, feelings, opinions and impressions. So that's why in this video I've got 15 of these alternatives to saying I think, which will help you to sound sometimes smarter, sometimes more natural and sometimes more professional. We'll be looking at formal and informal phrases and I will tell you when they're more suitable for writing or for speaking. Some of these phrases will be ideal if you're taking an IELTS exam or any English exam. Some of them are going to be ideal either for the writing or the speaking part or both. So make sure you keep watching if you're taking one of those exams. And also we'll look at conversational phrases as well as phrases which are fantastic for giving your opinion in a formal situation like at work. Don't forget guys, a new year, new start. Perhaps you really want to make sure that 2020 is the year that you reach your English learning goals. So if you want to do that, then make sure that you do subscribe. When you subscribe, you'll get videos every single Friday. And also guys, hit the notification bell because the bell will notify you when a new lesson is out. Number one. Number one is from my perspective. From my perspective. This is a formal phrase. If you use it in speaking, you would use it in the workplace with colleagues who you have a formal relationship with, or you could use it in writing, and you could also use it in exams. It sounds very impressive, it sounds quite academic. From my perspective, climate change is a pressing issue. Number two. Number two is to my mind. To my mind. And this is quite in the middle of formal and informal phrase. I wouldn't necessarily use it if I was chatting with my friends, but I would definitely use it at work. I would probably use it in any kind of exam. I could use it in formal situations, but it's not the most formal. You can use this phrase in writing, for example, formal emails at work or in an IELTS writing. But if you're using it at university, be careful to use it in an essay, as most universities do not want you to use pronouns like I and my, so I would avoid it in that context. Number three is from my viewpoint. From my viewpoint. Again, this is a more formal phrase. We would use it in IELTS writing, for example, at work, in formal situations, but we wouldn't use it if we're having a chinwag with our friends. They might think we sound a little bit too formal, a little bit too posh almost. So this is certainly a formal phrase. So you can say, from my viewpoint, climate change is a pressing issue. Or you could also say, from my viewpoint, we should negotiate a higher fee. Number four, a nice informal one now. This is I reckon. I reckon. And this is a synonym of I guess. And we use it quite a lot in the UK when we're just chatting, we're saying that we guess something, we predict something. So it's a nice alternative to saying I think all the time. Do you know, I really reckon that this season Liverpool are going to do super well. Maybe they'll win the league. Or we might say, oh, I reckon that tomorrow it's going to be a rainy day. Have you seen the sky? I reckon it's going to rain. Okay, phrase number 5 is I guess, which of course is also informal. We use I guess when we're estimating, when we're saying things without too much conviction. So if we say, I guess climate change is a pressing issue, we're not saying that we really are committed to this opinion. We're saying I guess, probably. Number 6 is a great phrase. It is as far as I'm concerned. As far as I'm concerned. And you can use this in formal and informal contexts. I would use it when I was chatting to my friends, my family, As far as I'm concerned, we should probably buy a new car, or, well, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not happy with the current government. We might say things like that. However, you can also use it in formal situations. You could use it at work, in the IELTS exam, things like that. You could also use it in IELTS writing. However, remember it does have I, so it's not suitable for university level writing. Number 7 is I would say. I would say. Very, very useful phrase. You can use it in formal and informal situations. You can use it with friends. I could say, well, I would say that climate change is a pressing issue. Or I could use it at work. I could say, well, I would say this new opportunity is really great and we can get the whole team involved. So it's actually very useful because you can use it in both situations. So remember that one, guys. It's nice and easy to remember. I would say. Number 8. Number 8 is in my opinion. Now, I wasn't sure whether to include this one because it's not one of my favorites and I feel it gets overused. If students don't use I think, they tend to use in my opinion. And so they say I think and in my opinion, and it gets a little bit boring, especially in IELTS writing. And believe me, I've marked a lot of IELTS writing exams. I've looked at a lot of students' writing, and I feel that this one is overused. However, you can use it sometimes, just don't get addicted to it. Look at how many others there are. So you can use it, but just don't overuse it. You could also make it a little bit more sophisticated by saying, I am of the opinion. I am of the opinion that climate change is a pressing issue. I'm of the opinion. Number 9. Number 9 is if you ask me, and we typically use this before we give advice or our opinion on an issue. It's very conversational. It's not really so much for formal situations. You can use it at work if you're obviously in a more informal setting with your colleagues, but it's a lovely, useful one to use. If you ask me, climate change is really a pressing issue. Or if you ask me, she should really cut down on smoking. So it's often with should, this kind of thing, for giving advice. If you ask me, this is what I think. So a nice, easy one to remember for conversations. Number 10. Number 10 is similar. It's quite informal. It is the way I see it, and do try, guys, and copy my intonation of these phrases because this is the way natural English is spoken. The way I see it, we emphasize I because it's about me. I'm giving my opinion. So watch this video a few times and really listen carefully to where I put emphasis on certain words. This way you'll sound much more natural. So it is the way I see it, climate change is a pressing issue. Number 11, I believe or I feel. So 2 for the price of 1 on this one. Sometimes instead of saying I think, you might want to say I believe. For example, I believe climate change is a pressing issue. This is where you're really saying this is something to do with your beliefs that are maybe more dear to you. It's not just something you think, it's not just a thought. It's a belief you have, something you've thought about and you've considered a bit more deeply. Also, if you want to say something with more emotion, you could say I feel. Like, I really feel we need to focus on our fitness now. Or I really feel I need to improve my English. You're showing this is something that is more emotional for you, not necessarily coming from your thoughts, but from your emotions. So I really feel. I feel climate change is a pressing issue. Of course, with these, you can also add adverbs. You could say, I strongly believe, I strongly feel, or I honestly feel. You could also say, I kind of feel. I kind of feel we should focus more on our fitness. Number 12 is in my view, in my view. Very similar to from my viewpoint. This is a much more formal phrase. Again, we can put it in the same category as from my perspective, from my viewpoint, in my view. I probably wouldn't use this conversationally with friends. I may use it to express things at formal meetings at work and that kind of thing. In my view, Brexit is going to cause lots of economic changes. Number 13, my impression is that. I love this phrase because it gives you the option of saying this is an impression that you have. This is not necessarily a strong belief or a strong thought, but this is something that has made an impression on you. My impression is that climate change is a pressing issue. So when we use my impression, we're not saying it necessarily very strongly. So it's not saying I strongly believe or from my perspective. It's a bit more careful than that. Number 14 is it seems to me. It seems to me that climate change is a pressing issue. So here again, we're being more careful. It's quite similar to my impression is that. A more careful phrase when you want to not commit yourself too strongly to that opinion. The last one, we got there, number 15. This one is personally speaking. This is very much for speaking, not so much for writing, but you can use it for formal speaking, so exams, work, that kind of thing. When you want to say that personally speaking, so you're really talking a little bit more from the heart, like personally speaking, climate change is a pressing issue. Or personally speaking, I found this new system at work quite challenging. Right guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you will cut down on the amount you use I think and use some of these fantastic alternatives instead. Do make sure that you leave a comment and try to use any of them in a sentence below. Start practicing now, or you can ask me any questions about when to use them. As well as that guys, do make sure you watch this video a couple of times to help you get the phrases in your head. But as well as that, listen to my intonation, listen to how I express myself when I use these phrases, what words I emphasize and things like that. That's going to really help you to sound more natural. Thank you very much guys for watching, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. We'll see you all soon on Love English. Bye bye!